The Fix Liberty podcast is presented by the Fix Liberty Project, where we explore the fundamental principles of liberty and morality upon which a free society stands and thrives. Learn more and sign up for our free weekly email newsletter at fixliberty.com.
Welcome to the Fix Liberty Podcast. Today is August 27th, 2022. I am your host, Ross Brown. Thank you so much for joining us again here on the show today. The AP reports that student loan forgiveness could help more than 40 million Americans. But is anybody asking why college is so dang expensive to begin with? What is the value of a college education? Well, I graduated high school in 2003, and that was an era when nobody seemed to be asking such a reasonable question. Now, before we jump into the full depth of today's episode, I just want to share a few things about my story in the interest of full disclosure as it relates to college. I did attend Luther College following my high school graduation in 2003. I attended Luther College in Decorah, Iowa, from which I graduated in 2007 without taking on any student loan debt at all. How did I do that? Well, there's really three things. First of all, I'm blessed. My parents saved money throughout my childhood to pay for my college education. Secondly, I worked during summer months. And third, I received several academic scholarships from my church and Luther College itself to help me pay for tuition. In my 4 years at Luther, I double majored in business management and economics. And I now run a small family business and as well as host the Fix Liberty Project here. And so clearly my investment in college has yielded positive returns. But dang, you guys, the cost of college is spiraling out of control in America. And it's just worth us asking the question, is college worth its costs today? And moreover, what can be done to rein in tuition prices? That's what I want to explore in today's episode of the Fix Liberty Podcast. So first things first, there is no doubt that education is a good and valuable thing. America has understood that since the founding of our nation. In a letter written to James Madison, dated December 20th, 1787, Thomas Jefferson expressed his views on education in no uncertain terms. He says, quote, "Above all things, I hope the education of the common people will be attended to, convinced that on their good sense we may rely with the most security for the preservation of a due degree of liberty." Unquote. I agree with Jefferson's sentiment. Quality education is of fundamental importance if a society is to flourish under freedom. Well, now, why is that? Well, it's really quite obvious. Quality education improves the condition of our human capital by equipping people with knowledge, ideas, problem-solving abilities, practical skills, and hopefully good sense. Just think about it. Everything else the same, a society filled with educated people is much more likely to flourish than a society filled with uneducated people. We are right, therefore, to promote strong academic and other educational institutions in our free societies. Yet, quality education is not infinitely valuable. It is entirely possible to craft scenarios in which the costs of a quality education exceed its benefits. And unfortunately, it seems that we Americans are witnessing one such scenario play out in the context of college in our real world today. Now, as I mentioned, I am an American millennial. I was born in 1984, graduated high school in 2003, graduated college in 2007. And I grew up in this era that stressed the importance of college for everybody. It didn't matter the cost. It didn't matter the debt. It didn't matter the subject you studied. It didn't matter what career path you intended to pursue. Go to college was the universal message. College was the supposed golden ticket to a high-paying job. Plus, it offered the all-important college experience, which is sort of a vague catch-all term to describe dorm life and drinking and partying and game day and promiscuity and the like. My friends, it is ironic that Americans have been so terribly stupid about the role of college for an entire generation. What is the value of a college education? Well, the universal hopes of colleges and universities is summarized in one word: more. Like businesses, colleges and universities hope that the value of their product, education, is worth more to their customers, students, than the price, tuition, currently charged to obtain it. If tuition increases and students pony up the cash, colleges and universities' hopes are affirmed. The process repeats year after year after year, so long as students and their families stupidly deem college education to be infinitely valuable, and so long as the federal government, which holds 92% of all outstanding student loan debt, link in the show notes, enables students' stupidity with an unending supply of cash via student loans, the cost of college tuition climbs indefinitely, and the problem snowballs. As it becomes ever costlier to obtain a college education, more and more students are forced into debt to obtain one. And sadly, the problem is regressive. Poorest students are most likely to be negatively affected. So maybe we should just forgive everybody their student loans. Well, time out. To further expose its fundamental injustice, President Joe Biden's plan to forgive portions of student loan debt only exacerbates this problem. As precedent is set for student loan forgiveness, students are incentivized to borrow even more. I mean, think about it. How much potentially free money do students want? Surely, like colleges and universities, students' answer is surely more. Colleges and universities are licking their lips as the federal government doubles down on its distortion of the higher education marketplace. Now, listen, we Americans are right to be frustrated about the out-of-control costs of college in America today, but what can we do? Well, I suggest that exactly one thing has the power to stabilize or possibly reduce the price of college tuition, and that is increased consumer sense. Consumers of higher education, being students and their families, must first recognize that college is not infinitely valuable. The value of college education depends on its cost and its expected returns. In other words, students and their families are right to recognize college as a potential investment. And just like any other investment, investments are wise only when future expected returns exceed initial investment costs. Logically, we understand that the greater the future returns, or the lesser the initial costs, the higher is the value of the investment, and vice versa. So, as initial college investment costs, like college tuition, rise, the value of college investment decreases. And at some point, tuition becomes so expensive compared to expected future returns that college is not worth the investment for some students. And when those students, God bless them, having thrown off their stupidity, wisely choose to forego an investment in college, the universal hopes of colleges and universities are dashed. Marketplace feedback reveals that the value of higher education is no longer worth more than its current rate. College tuitions thus stabilize or decrease in order to retain or increase schools' student populations. Now, related side note, if and hopefully when this scenario actually ever plays out in the future, watch for colleges and universities to beg government for additional funding. Indeed, these institutions act like businesses in the pursuit of their own interests in more ways than one. Such is the nature of every human institution. But back to our wise students. Students who forego an investment in an expensive college or university could find better investment opportunities for their education dollars. Such students might go to a cheaper college or university. They might pursue a 2-year degree or a certification program. They might enter into an apprenticeship or a similar program. Heck, they might start an entrepreneurial venture. Investment in education is still a good idea. The key is simply to understand the investment as an investment. Good investments chase positive returns. We Americans are right, therefore, to embrace a pro-market ideology when it comes to higher education. Let wise potential investors in college determine what a college education is worth through their investment decisions. And we need to beware of market distortions. Such an ideology places much responsibility in the hands of investors, but such is always the nature of liberty. We are free to make investment decisions, good and bad alike, and governments should never use taxpayer dollars to bail out anybody from their poor investment decisions, lest it violate fundamental justice and incentivize more bad behavior in the future. How many times over do we need to learn this critical lesson? Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Fixed Liberty Podcast. I'll see you next time.